Good evening, my name is Lauren Wattenbarger, and I am in CTE 5619 with Dr. Adams at Appalachian State University, and I'm here to present my Critical Issues podcast. While researching and trying to decide which critical issue in career and technical education I wanted to choose, I decided to go with one that's a little more near and dear to my heart, simply because I like to make the most of everybody's time, and I also like to move forward in life with purpose and direction and intention. So I feel like my critical issue definitely touches on some of those things. I've heard a lot from my peers in the process of kind of reaching out, in that CTE is oftentimes a dumping ground, and while I absolutely can agree with that, I specifically want to speak on the fact that does the overall goal and purpose of career technical education match or align with its testing strategies? I think coming in as a new teacher, I was told teach to the test and different things so that students could do well. And while that's all great, what does a test prove in the long run? As I prepare students for real world experiences and being able to problem solve and work with team members and communication and things like that, that you gain through experiences and various skill levels. So I guess what I mean by all of this is, if CTE is all about preparing students with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to prepare them for the real world, then why are we placing such a huge emphasis on a multiple choice test that doesn't necessarily display a level of skill or preparation? I certainly recognize that with the money that comes into and funds career and technical education, I recognize that there needs to be a level of accountability and proven success, I guess you could say. But there, to me, there has to be a better way to ensure that a student is truly gaining those life experiences and truly connecting with the industry and reaching out and either getting jobs right out of high school or moving on to pursue content area that is just going to be a stepping stone for their future. I just feel like there's a better way than oftentimes these multiple choice tests. If we believe in building these practical sort of experiences, then why are programs and funds cut if a teacher has a group of students who do not simply test well? And how fair is that? I mean, maybe somewhere along the way a teacher gets a group of students who she doesn't really connect with. Maybe they're just culturally just different. Maybe school and homework and an emphasis and an encouragement around education isn't really built up at home. And so if she's the only one advocating for an education, then it makes it very difficult for students to test well in her classroom. I don't think that there's any particular right or wrong answer in creating these solutions, but I definitely wanted to hear from some of my peers, and then thought I would share with you sort of a visual, because again, I'm a visual learner. So if you'll bear with me. First, obviously you've already heard from me with regards to what the overall issue is I'm speaking on. Then you've also heard a little bit on my particular insight. And then finally, we're going to look at, or in just a few minutes, we're going to look at some of my peers' thoughts, and then maybe some things that I came up with along the way to sort of solve this issue, or to present an idea around solving this issue in career and technical education. The informalities of the research literally came from my peers as well as myself in some readings and things that I've gained over the last year. First and foremost, I'm not going to read all of this to you guys. I did want to interview my peers, but not everybody likes to be on camera, and obviously we have different schedules that didn't allow our schedules to mesh. But if you would like, I think you would gain a lot of information from each of these people. Diane Brewer is a registered nurse, and she teaches in my department in health sciences, and she believes strongly that we've got to engage students with hands-on activities and participating in various skill levels and check-offs and field trips, guest speakers, internships. When a student is engaged in some sort of physical task or an actual building of a skill, oftentimes the students are much more eager to participate in their education. We can also teach them the importance of building a resume and interviewing and communicating. And so there's a lot that she feels that the test will not do. A test doesn't actually show what a student has learned. It's more what a student can recall. And if we're preparing them for the real world and for jobs, then what exactly can a multiple choice test do if someone is not necessarily a good test taker or has the ability to recite information? Ashley Peterson, she brought up several good points, and she's been teaching for, I believe, 5 years in agriculture. And again, she felt strongly that there's so much more about a hands-on experience with students versus giving them a 100-question multiple-choice test, because life isn't multiple choice. One thing that she mentioned was that somewhere along the way there was a shift in society that told students that they needed to go to college in order to be able to find a meaningful career. And while there is absolute validity in some of that, it's not necessarily the end-all be-all. And so she truly wants to be able to connect students with some of these hands-on skills, practical experiences, connecting them with jobs, and allowing students to truly explore their interests in a particular area. She feels that somewhere along the way, that when that message of the need for college occurred, CTE sort of lost its luster, if you will. Students thought that CTE was for dumb kids or electives or whatever, that didn't have a ton of meaning and purpose. But the reality is that they have a lot of purpose in preparing students for their future. Ricky Howard, he had lots of good things to say. He shared how the whole EVOS process, and even I'm still new to some of these things, but how when we as teachers project a student to place within a certain score, and this is literally all for testing information and statistics across the state and across the country. If a student was projected to score a 100 on the test, but in fact only made a 95, then their score would not count in the overall representation that would be sent to the state or to the county, because they didn't actually, in fact, meet the projected score. He says that standardized testing has caused CTE classroom environments to simply concentrate on teaching to help students perform well on a test, and not necessarily to be successful in the workforce. Jan Rowe, she said that she feels, and she's a new teacher, by the way, in the health sciences with me as well, but she just feels that we can do a better job preparing students for the real world. And that being said, then we need to be connecting them with things other than assessments. It might be hands-on learning, skills tests, demonstrations of certain understandings, internships, just giving students the ability to truly narrow down their interests and move forward with kind of what they want their future to hold. Finally, another gentleman in my department in marketing and entrepreneurship, he's been teaching for a long time as well, but he too mentioned the dumping grounds and ending up with students who ultimately were not interested in his content and were just sort of filling a spot or gaining the credits, wasn't able to connect with them very well, and in turn because they weren't engaged and they weren't interested in the content because of them just being put into a class, then therefore his test scores suffered because of the lack of interest and concern or even applicability of a particular course. So I really encourage you guys to kind of take a step back, pause these videos, and read some of what each of these people are saying, because I really found it interesting and both helpful as I prepared this research. Finally, what are some ideas around resolving this issue? Some things that I came up with is, can we offer a skills test that's much like some of the things that are offered at our CTSO competitive events throughout the state? Another thing is, can we choose a practical placement or some sort of internship prior to graduation? Or maybe each year they build on some sort of service project. Can we offer a mixed means of assessment? So maybe we have partially skill and then the other part knowledge. And that way it gives students an opportunity, kind of like the SAT or others test, where if they're stronger in one area, they can prove themselves stronger in one area over another. Ultimately, what I found is that more often than not, we're going to run into the fact that other forms of assessment are simply time-consuming. Who's going to go through and write the material and the expectations all over again? There is also an inconsistent evaluation process across the schools, and then even opportunities are going to vary among the various locale because of funding, transportation, and simply the availability of students. I would love to hear from some of you all, maybe some ideas. I hope you enjoy this podcast. I hope that it makes you think a little bit as you have either been teaching or are beginning to teach. So I appreciate your time and look forward to your feedback. Thank you.